Right. Nutrition. Videos rolling.
It's nice off things back out.
Should I wait or should we get started?
Nah, you good guys?
Alright, thank you all for coming. I'm very excited and also very nervous, but it'll be good. So, RH10 nutrition seminar. Today we're going to cover, so like I said in the video on YouTube, we're going to cover like macronutrients, kind of what they are. I'll touch on them. I'm not going to go into massive detail about everything, so I don't want to like overload you guys with loads of information that you're not going to remember. But we'll go over everything. I'm going to talk about total daily energy expenditure and how that relates to weight loss, weight gain, how you use your energy throughout the day. Does anyone know how they do? Any ideas? No? Okay, that's fine, just wondering. I'm going to look at like how to balance your meals. I'll touch on hydration, fueling for workouts. I will touch on supplements as well. I won't go into too much detail about that either, but something to touch on because I know people are interested, and some other bits at the end as well. So to start with, what is nutrition? It's the process of providing or obtaining food necessary for health and growth, which is obvious, right? You need food to survive. We need water to survive, basically. Our main nutrients that we need, your carbs, protein, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, and your fibre, which comes under carbs. Okay, they're the things that we need to survive, as we all know. It's important, again, to survive and thrive, okay? We can survive on certain types of food, but are we really thriving sometimes? Which is why nutrition quality is really important, what we're feeding ourselves. And according to WHO, better nutrition is related to a stronger immune system, safer pregnancy and childbirth, and a lower risk of non-communicable diseases. So that includes things like cardiovascular disease and diabetes and things like that. So carbs, okay, is our main kind of energy source, especially in CrossFit. Carbs are your friend. They are key, especially for those high intensity workouts that we pretty much do every single day. It's the key energy source for cells such as like your red blood cells, nervous system, in the brain. That is what they like, is glucose. Glucose is stored in your body as glycogen in your liver and your muscle, and then when it's, can you guys see that? Yeah. When it's ready to be used, it's broken down into those glucose molecules. There are different types of carbs. So you have like your starchy carbs, potatoes, rice, bread, things like that. You have your sugar, so in its simplest form is glucose, and you have your sucrose, which is the stuff you find in sweets and cakes and things like that, and then you have the sugar found in milk, like lactose. And then you have your fibre, which I will go into. Fibre is a form of non-digestible carbohydrate, and it is super important in your diet. So the acceptable macronutrient distribution range, or AMDR, I'm going to call it from now on, is 45 to 65%, or the Eat Well guide suggests you should probably make it about a third of your diet. It's found in a lot of foods, like I've already said, like your grains, your rice, your bread, sweet things, vegetables, things like that. As I've already mentioned, it's an important contribution of fibre and micronutrient intakes as well, which a lot of people probably don't think about as well, like our vitamins and minerals. We get a lot of good stuff from our carbs. Okay? So fats is another good source of energy. That's for, when we use fats, when we tap into our fat stores for energy, it's more that kind of moderate intensity workout. So for us, our carbs are going to be really useful, but those fats are just as useful as well. We need them for a lot of other things like hormones, our cell walls. We need fats, are really important for our brain, and vitamins as well. A, D, E, K vitamins are made out of fat, basically. So fat is really important. The AMDR for this is not to exceed 35%. So we're looking for about 10 to 35% kind of range in our diet for fats. Nor I didn't say for carbs. So as you can see here, it says 9 cal per gram. That's how much energy there is in fat per gram. For carbs, it's 4. Just as a reference, we'll probably hold on to that for later on. And there are different types of fats, obviously. So you have your saturated fats that you've all probably heard of, that people say, oh no, they're not good for you. you limit your saturated fats. And then you have your polyunsaturated fats, which are your good fats. You find those in oily fish and nuts, and they include your N6 and your N3 fats. I'm sure you've all heard about omega-3s and stuff like that, how good they are for you, and they are good for you. So of the N3 fats, you've got your ALA, DHA and EPA. I'm not going to bother saying the big names because I don't think I really know them off by heart myself. But they are essential, okay? They're anti-inflammatory. We need them for our brain. We just need them for our health, okay? So it's really important that we try and get more of those polyunsaturated fats into our diet. Consuming 1 portion of oily fish per week is a really good way of doing that. If we are vegan or vegetarian and don't eat fish, then we're looking at things like nuts and seed oils. Supplements could be an option as well if we're just not getting enough of those omega-3s in. And as kind of Eat Well Guide, government guides state that we should be getting no more of 10% of our total daily intake of saturated fats. And saturated fats you find in like animal products and things like that. There is a role for saturated fats in our body. So you find saturated fats in healthy foods as well. So there is a place for them, but it's just about limiting them and getting more of those kind of polyunsaturated fatty acids. Fibre, right, I really love fibre, I think it's so interesting. It cannot be digested by humans. As we probably know, fibre bulks up your stool, okay? It passes through our stomach, helps us with digestion, things like that. And it slows the rate of absorption of certain molecules. So if you are kind of, I'm not going to say that, I'll wait for that bit. And it actually is good fuel for our gut microbes. So there are 2 types of fibre. You have your insoluble fibre and your soluble fibre. The insoluble fibre is the stuff that is going to bulk out our stools, help us with digestion, move through us, okay? Our soluble is not digested by us, but digested by our gut microbes. And they convert it into things called short-chain fatty acids. And we use those for energy, for our, like the cells in our colon and things like that. And actually, short-chain fatty acids have a energy like carbs and proteins do, etc. And it's 2 calories per gram. And they are really, really beneficial for us. So getting a good range of fibre in is really important. So obviously soluble fibre you can get from avocados, oats, beans like legumes, chickpeas, things like that. And then it's insoluble from your whole grains, your veggies and your nuts, okay? So at the moment, I know for the UK, the majority of us are not getting enough fibre in. We're probably getting in approximately 10 grams less than we should. We should be aiming for about 30 grams, or we should be aiming for 15 grams per 1,000 calories that we eat. The more fibre, the better, really. It's really important for us, but going from one extreme, if you're not getting enough to the kind of this end, probably not good because you might get some digestive problems. So it's better to kind of work your way up. If you know you're not getting enough fibre in, slowly introduce more into your diet and work it up instead of going from 1 to 100.
Do you know why that is? To the UK diet, why?
It's just the type of food we're surrounded by. You know, the kind of easy accessible food is not super full of, like, it's not that full of fibre. You know, our McDonald's is not that much full of fibre, you know, and it's great, but you know, the Western diet just we don't consume enough fibre. That's why it's just not there. Okay, I think as a whole we need to be eating more plants. We just don't eat enough of them, basically. It's just more education. That's all it is.
I think the problem is they want to keep the life of the food on the shelves long.
Yeah.
So they have to take a lot of the crap out of it. Yeah. So a lot of the good stuff
That
out.
definitely plays a role. Hello. And fibre is associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, things like stroke, type 2 diabetes, and colorectal cancer as well. So again, very, very important. You'll see there, I've referenced the paper. So diets rich in fermentable fibre such as fruits, grains, and in particular oats have been shown to reduce LDL cholesterol. So another good reason to eat fibre. How to improve it? Diversity. Getting in a range of plant foods is so important. Looking at your whole foods for a majority of your diet, and think about inclusion of things into your diet aside from exclusion, because a lot of people, when they want to change up their diet, they start getting rid of loads of things, like, well, stop eating cake, stop eating blah, 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 stop eating carbs. Think about bringing things into your diet, more plants, more beans, more of... Because
it fills you up more, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it does. That's the role. It does, it kind of bulks it out, makes you feel fuller. So the Super 6 that we should be to focus on to help get more diversity is your whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes. Herbs and spices do count, by the way.
Do they?
They do, yeah. They're from plants, right? So getting in herbs and spices counts as a plant point. Technically, so they're sort of things to think about. Cinnamon challenge. So yeah, there's your Super 6. Think about making your diet consist of mainly those, and then other stuff comes into it as well. Protein. We all heard a load about protein, especially when it comes to exercise. So they literally are the building blocks of our body, right? They carry molecules, chemical reactions, they have a role in hormones as well. The ADMR for this is 10 to 35% of our daily intake. And the reference nutrient intake is, for the whole population, is about 0.75 grams per kilogram of body weight. So that's like your minimum limit of protein we should be consuming. Most of us get more than that anyway.
What was the minimum again?
0.75 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Right, so if I weigh 100 kilos, I need a minimum of 75 grams. I mean, I am up to 75.
Obviously, as an active person, you're going to need much more than that. This is for someone, your everyday person who doesn't necessarily do like vigorous activity. They just, you know, the everyday person. But for people that are active, you're going to need a lot more protein to support everything you're doing. So there are 20 amino acids that we need to make proteins. 9 of those are essential amino acids, so we need to get those from our diet. Complete proteins, things like animal products, and some plant products like soy and quinoa, hemp, things like that. They are technically complete proteins as well. They have all 9 essential amino acids, but then you'll find a lot of plant products are what you call incomplete. They're missing one or more of those essential amino acids. The other day I saw like this duck walk across the roof. It's really funny. It's like, yeah, they were like waddling across the roof.
Definitely a seagull.
Oh, whatever it was. So there's a thing called complementary pairing when it comes to plant proteins, which I'll touch on more later on. Changes in older adults. So as you get older, there's a thing called anabolic resistance that happens within our muscles. They become less sensitive to protein, basically. So as we get older, we need more than that reference nutrient intake. So it actually goes from 0.5 to 1.2 grams, and that's about 65 plus. So as you get older, you actually end up needing more protein as like a baseline. Have you guys heard of muscle protein synthesis before? Never heard of muscle. So it's literally as it says, muscle protein synthesis, right? So after exercise, we give ourselves fuel, initiate a muscle protein synthesis, helps us build muscle and things like that. Leucine is an amino acid and it's the primary trigger for that. So if we're looking to optimize muscle building, things like that, we want to be getting in our protein that contains enough of that leucine amongst all the other amino acids. And the threshold for that is 2.5 to 2.8 grams per meal, but don't get too hung up on that, it's just there for your information.
That's quite difficult if you don't eat a lot of meat.
Yes, it is. It's the thing of that incomplete proteins, and a lot of plant-based proteins don't contain enough of it compared to animal products, so yeah, you're right. Yeah. or EAAs, which is essential amino acids as well. So, total daily energy expenditure. How do you expend your energy during the day? So I made this graph a little while ago. I know, it's amazing. So we have our BMR, basal metabolic rate, which is literally the energy you use when you're sitting, not doing anything, okay? You're just sitting there, living life, okay? That accounts for about 60 to 75% of the energy you use in the day, which is quite a lot. It's probably more than maybe some of you thought. If you just sat there, you're actually using quite a lot of energy. Then you have your thermic effect of food. So it's the energy needed to digest, absorb and store all the food you eat in your body. And that accounts for about 10 to 15%, which is why they say eat more protein, uses more energy, things like that. And then you have your thermic effect of activity, and this is broken into two categories. So you have your NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and your EAT, which is your exercise activity thermogenesis. So the EAT is the smaller part of that. The NEAT is actually the larger part. So the NEAT is the stuff you do every day. You're walking, you're fidgeting, you're cleaning, you're gardening, moving around. What Tony's doing now, moving his hands. That's your NEAT, okay? You use more energy on that than you do in your exercise activity thermogenesis, which is what we do here. So in terms of weight loss, think of your kind of EAT as more, you know, just getting some movement in, getting stronger, fitter, things like that. And then look at your NEAT if you're looking to adjust your energy balance more so. Because I think there's a lot of focus on that EAT part, and they're like, oh, I need to do more and more. But actually the NEAT plays a much bigger role in that. So we'll come on to that later on, but that's how you use your energy throughout the day. Any questions on that? No?
Yeah.
Go on.
Depending on your weight,
yeah, they do. That's why there's no set number, because it does depend on your body composition. Things like age, activity, height, weight, blah blah blah, things like that. They all affect these ratios. So if your TEF, if I ate a diet like high in protein, fibre, things like that, my TEF might be more than my twin, for example, who just ate chocolate bars, right? I don't have a twin, but. So, energy balance. So, in order to lose weight or gain weight, you have to be either eating less than you expend to lose weight, or eating more than you expend to gain weight. Can you see that? So this is you in energy balance or calorie balance, okay? Calories in equals calories out. That's maintenance. You don't lose or gain weight. There's more calories out than calories in, so you're going to lose weight. That one is the reverse. The fundamental principle of weight loss is you need to be obviously using more than you're putting in. That is the fundamental baseline. However, that kind of principle doesn't take into account things around it. So think of that as the bottom. Then you have like social influences, your genetics, your gut, you know, environment plays a role, makes things much harder. So that's the baseline. Yeah, calories in versus calorie out, but there's a lot more to it than just telling someone that. Telling someone calories in versus calories out, or move more, eat less, is not helpful in the slightest. Okay, if it was, we wouldn't have a problem, but it's not. There's a lot of other factors that affect that. Some methods for measuring.
Wake us all up.
Boston's like, I'm here. Some methods for if you're looking to track what you're eating and stuff. Obviously there's calorie counting, there's macro counting, and then you have things that are not so number specific, like hand portions and kind of the plate method, which is dividing your plate up into specific portions, which I will come on to. There's a really nice kind of piece in the book that I read, and it says numbers of calories in food does not equal the number of calories on the side of the pack, you know, like the nutrition labels, does not equal the number of usable calories that we get out of food, and it is completely true. our body processes food very differently to a kind of like bomb calorimeter, or I can't even say it, but the way they kind of work out calories, they heat it up and then gives an energy output. Our bodies are different to that. They use energy differently. So you can't, the calories on the side of the pack because of that are not 100% accurate, and our bodies use it differently. So just keep that in mind when you are if you are calorie counting. It's not 100%, but nothing really is. So for weight loss, again, energy deficit. Maybe if you're thinking about doing it, look at your liquid calories first, because a lot of people disregard them or just don't realise that it's a thing. I've spoken to people and they've gone, oh, you know, I eat this many calories, but I'm not losing weight. And then I've spoken to them, what you eat? And they go, oh yeah, I have this and that. I've had like beer, blah, blah, blah. But they don't realise that actually counts. So have a look at your liquid calories first. Your coffee, juices, they all count towards your energy. Wine at night or beers, whatever, okay? Focus on whole foods. Whole foods, as I've mentioned previously, very important. Volume foods like your veggies, they have less calories in them and they fill you up. So if you're looking for a starting point, focus on whole foods, okay? In terms of protein, the main effect of protein on energy balance is thought to be related to satiety. So when you eat protein, it stimulates release of satiety hormones. I'm not going to bother telling you what those are, but the protein makes you feel fuller for longer. So that's a really important element in your diet as well. So in terms of weight gain or muscle gain, you kind of want to be aiming for the same amount of protein as you eat in weight loss. That shouldn't really change. You should still be getting, especially as an active person, you should be eating a good amount of protein. Again, whole foods, but you might opt for kind of more nutrient dense options. Avocado, very good for you, but very nutrient dense, high in fat, something like that. For optimization of muscle protein synthesis and muscle gain, you're probably looking for a protein of about 1.6 to 2.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. These numbers range. Some say the top end is 2.2 to 2.4. At the end of the day, if you're eating too much of anything, you're going to put on weight. So in terms of meals, it's better to spread out your protein intake over the day instead of not having enough protein in the first few meals and having loads of protein for dinner. It's better to equally distribute your protein throughout the day, whether that's 3 meals, 4 meals, whatever it is. So you're probably looking at about 0.4 to 0.55 grams per kilogram across those meals per body weight. Again, this is if you want to use numbers, don't worry too much. There are other ways of working it out, okay? You don't have to track everything to know what you're eating. I've mentioned leucine already. So, yeah, sure.
So would muscle gain be classed as a weight gain?
Technically, yeah.
So
Well,
if you wanted to gain muscle, would you need to be in either maintenance or surplus?
yeah, you would. It's hard to gain muscle in a deficit unless you are like a complete beginner. And even that, the deficit can't be too aggressive because your body won't put its energy into building you up when you're not eating enough. Or if you're obese or have come back from injury, something like that. So there's only very few scenarios where you, in a deficit, put in a muscle. If you want to, it's better to do one or the other, essentially. That's the best way of doing it. You don't need to be in a ridiculous surface. Have you heard of, what's the dirty bulk? Have you heard of
Sounds
it?
good. Yeah. Could you talk about that?
Dirty bulk is like people just go, right, I'm just going to eat whatever I want and put on weight, which will work,
Yeah.
but you don't need to be in such an aggressive, like, what's it called? Surplus either to gain muscle. I need to mention behaviour change when it comes to these things, because how many of us have tried diets, done it, and then gone back to the way we were afterwards? A lot of us. It's probably because we've gone too extreme on something, done it for a period of time, and then gone back to normal. We haven't actually implemented any new behaviours, any new habits that we can continuously do and keep doing for the rest of our lives. understanding your values of why you want to do something is really important. So values could be family, could be health, things like that. So understanding those is going to help with the success of your behaviours, and do your values align with your behaviours? That's something to think about. Translating numbers into food habits. There's a little thing here which kind of shows that. This is creating new habits, like I'm going to have 2 portions of veg with my meals for every single meal. If you're not already doing that, that's like a new habit you can start implementing and continuously doing for the rest of your life. Set goals. Goals express the values. Goals are important for long-term success, so these can be long-term goals where somewhere in the future, a few years down the line, I'm going to be this, or they could be like short-term goals. Every week I'm going to go to the gym twice a week, something like that. It's just important to establish your values and then create behaviours that align with that. I've put a couple of books there if you guys are interested. There's Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg and Atomic Habits by James Clear. They're really, really good books. So if you guys are interested in those, that's the name of them. I don't expect you guys to remember all of this. This is how you calculate calories and macros if you're interested. If you fancy taking a picture, it's up to you, or talk to me after. But in order to calculate them, you could go online and use a calorie calculator, which is what most people do, is absolutely fine. Or you can do it the long-winded way, which is by determining your BMR, and that's these 2 equations. This one's for women, this one's for men. And then once you've determined your BMR, you then need to multiply that by an activity factor. So again, these are listed here. We're probably going to be at least in this middle category. That's where we're going to be at for activity factor. Some of us might be on the very active, extremely active side, depending on what your job's like. Some of us can have really physically active jobs and come to the gym as well, so you're just you're doing a lot of activity. And then in terms of macros, protein, you obviously you times your body weight by that target protein intake, which could be 1.2 or 2.2 grams, something like that. So that's how you find your protein intake in grams. If you want to find out how many calories you should be eating, you times that by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram. Fat, you would times your total calories by the range you want to be eating. So again, this is like 0.1 to 0.35, and then if you want to convert that into grams, you then divide it by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram in fat. It's the highest kind of the macronutrients. Carbs, you just take the fat and the protein away, then you have your carbs. Any questions? No? Cool. Has anyone heard of the double burden of malnutrition, or know what malnutrition is? I really just wanted to touch on this because so malnutrition refers to deficiencies, excess or imbalances in a person's intake of energy or nutrients. And it's not just if someone's underweight or if someone's obese. You can actually suffer from malnutrition if you're not getting enough vitamins and those nutrients in. So I read a paper that they conducted on a group of young adults, and they categorised these adults into metabolic syndrome or metabolically healthy, and they found that 31% of the young adults with metabolic syndrome were actually of a healthy weight. So if your diet is not of quality, you are at risk of nutritional deficiencies. This is why I keep saying it is very, very important that you're getting them in. You could live with chocolate bars. If you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. However, will you be thriving? Probably not. Women specifically, in general, require less energy than men. We're just generally smaller, most of us, but require the same number of nutrients. So therefore, the priority of that nutrient quality it's important for us all, but we need to think about it a lot more. And pregnancy, obviously, and breastfeeding increase these nutrient needs because you're growing a human inside you. So, balanced meals. So I have the Eat Well guide up there just because it's government. Some ways to balance your meal. So you could have a plate. You want half veggies, quarter of protein. Is that what I did? Did I do that as a plate?
That's a plate.
A big old plate. Half veggies, quarter protein, and then you either can have like a quarter of your your carbs and then like a thumb of fat or something like that. It depends on you and your diet. Some people go for a keto diet, so they may not be having any carbs at all. But obviously, like I said, for us, carbs are important, so get your carbs in.
Yeah.
So that's, yes?
You just said like quarter of my plate is protein.
Mm.
So if I whack quarter of that plate is chicken or like lamb, which obviously has protein in, but it's also like quite fatty, do we just pick the nutrient that is mostly and kind of like, hey, this is lamb, I'm just going to call it protein even though I know it's got other things in it, or are we trying to be cleverer than that?
I think,
It depends.
yeah, it depends, but I mainly class that as your protein source. It will have fat in it. If you're really like that, if you want to be super strict, go for a leaner cuts of protein, like your chicken breast, your low fat mince and things like that. But if you're not too worried about, you just want a balanced plate, I'd just worry about that being your protein. That makes sense? Cool. Another way of doing it is by using your hands. Your hands are very specific to you, so you could balance your meals by using the hand method. So you'd want a palm of protein on there, a cup of carbs, thumb of fat, and a fistful of veggies. So 2 fistful of veggies, palm of protein, cup full of carbs. Obviously, if you're a bigger person, you might want to double these quantities. It's kind of like, with these, it's kind of trial and error, what works for you, things like that, but your hand is portable, like I said, it's specific, so you can take it anywhere. When you're eating out, you can kind of gauge what you're eating. Sorry? I wouldn't use it for children. I don't actually know, but I wouldn't use it for children. They're just, because they're growing so fast, it changes all the time. Yeah, so you have that hand method. There's some options to use if you didn't want a calorie count, macro count, things like that. Protein, is there anyone a veggie or vegan here? Flexitarian. Flexitarian. Okay, cool. As I think I've mentioned, protein for veggies and vegans, a lot of the plant-based proteins are less bioavailable and don't contain all those 9 amino acids, right? The way you assess this is the protein quality assessment, not going to go into it. There's a reference pattern for how much of each amino acid should be in foods and in good quality protein. So if a plant-based protein is below kind of these reference patterns, then it is called the limiting amino acid. So the limiting amino acid prevents protein synthesis in the body beyond the rate at which that amino acid is available. So as you can see here, it's like a water barrel. The water can't go any further than that plank, basically. It will spill out. So in order to kind of balance and complement these proteins, we'll have to start pairing them, which is where the complementary proteins come in. This is specific for plant-based proteins. Actually, it's important for all of us, not just vegans and vegetarians.
But if you're meat eating,
Yes.
am I right in thinking the chances of you being amino acid limited are way lower just because meat is generally complete proteins?
Yeah, but as I said, like for flexitarians, for example, they might be less meat than someone, you know, people eat different ranges of stuff, so that's why I'm saying it's important, because someone might only have meat once a week, but they're not technically vegan or vegetarian. Sources of protein, obviously for vegetarians, you're going to have your dairy and egg products. They are your complete proteins, so it's important to get those in. Vegan sources, you have soy, which is a complete protein. It's just less bioavailable because it has those like fibers in there. It's not going to be as easily digested as your animal protein, things like that. Quinoa, hemp, and chia actually also are complete proteins. It's just you'd have to eat a lot of them to get in enough, if that makes sense. So you'd have to eat like bags and bags of chia seeds to get in 20 grams of protein, and you'd be getting in a lot of fat along with that and things like that. Your incomplete proteins, legumes, nuts, seeds, but they're also very good for you for other reasons. So in order to get that complete profile of proteins, you compare them. Can you guys see, can you all see that? So you compare them. So you compare legumes with grains, so like a veggie chili with rice, legumes with nuts, chickpea and sunflower seed salad, something like that. There's lots of variations of things. Grains and nuts and peanut butter and toast. This is, I'm not saying these are like amazing sources of protein, but these are nutritionally complete sources of protein. Dairy plus all of those things will work. Hydration, I'm not going to go into too much of this because you kind of, with hydration, you can kind of see in your urine. If it's too dark, drink more water. Make sure you are fully hydrated before doing a heavy workout. I'd say probably like drink enough water hourly throughout the day.
How much should you be drinking a day?
It's individual. I read somewhere, I'd say a minimum go for 30 mils per kilogram of body weight, roughly.
Is that ideal body weight or your body weight?
Your body weight. It's not, there isn't any like, that I've seen any like specific recommendations.
And if you're not doing that, how does that impact your training?
Dehydration can impair your training. Your body needs water for lots of processes and functions. So you're not going to get the best out of your training if you are dehydrated. So you need to make sure that you are drinking enough water. And you might think about hypertonic drinks if you're doing like prolonged exercise, losing a lot of sodium and things like that. I think the best way to know is looking at your wee. If it is too dark, then drink more water. If you feel thirsty, drink water. Listen to your thirst cues. You do get water from fruits and veg as well. But yeah, just make sure you're kind of regularly drinking water or some form of hydrating drink. What'd you say?
Coffee.
Coffee counts? Coffee counts? Sounds like you, it does. Pre and post-workout nutrition. Carbs are our friend, as I have said 100 times. Pre-exercise meal. If you can eat a meal 2 to 3 hours before, that's great. Some of you work out at 6 AM, so it's just not possible. So you're probably looking at, if you can, something.
I work up like 3:30 the week before.
Of course you guys do. You care so much about your pre-workout nutrition.
The sleep is also important.
Yeah, that's another day. It's too much to go into that. You want something, if it's closer to the workout, you want something super high in carbs, easily digested. So at the bottom, you've got like bananas, honey and granola, jam on toast, something like that, a high energy bar, that's going to give you that quick release energy if it's quite close to training. If it's 2 to 3 hours before, you want a meal that's high in quality carbs, 20 to 30 grams of protein, some fat and fibre in there, not too much though because that slows down digestion. But before workouts, try and eat something because fasted training will only impact your training in terms of you won't be able to work as hard. So you want to give it your all in training, right? So make sure you are fueled for those workouts and you want something carby, like benzosaurin. Post-workout purposes to increase protein synthesis, replenish glycogen stores, repair damage caused by the workout. If you are looking to build muscle mass, this might be something that you can optimize, getting in something that's high protein and replenishing those carb stores after working out. Like I said before, the main thing is getting in a good distribution over the day. If you're getting a high amount of protein after a workout and then there's nothing for the rest of the day, you're doing it the wrong way around. Okay? You need to look at your overall diet, and then once you've got that nailed down, the timing can come into it. But your kind of skeletal muscle synthetic rates is stimulated after resistance training a little, twofold. Again, that's referenced at the bottom. So protein in the 2-hour period after, so from once you've done the exercise to kind of that time after, might help reach those daily targets and enhance the muscle photosynthesis if that's your aim. Okay. And like, yeah, as I said, total amount of distribution is more important. Of course.
If you had like a race or a competition, does the preceding days leading up to that matter in terms of nutrition, or is it like what you eat on the day you're doing?
The days leading up are definitely important.
So is carb loading a thing?
It is a thing. Yeah, it is a thing. It depends on what you're doing, but it definitely is a thing. You need to make sure you have that energy for the day. You can't just like wing it and then suddenly think you're prepared for that day. The days before are definitely important. I don't know loads on it, but I know they are definitely important.
When you say days before, you don't just mean like the night before
No.
you go down to...
Your nutrition throughout is important, like it has to be. I don't know the ins and outs of the build up towards it. Again, it depends on what you're doing. I'm sure different things they require different things as well, but
I'm sure there was a reference with carb loading that you have to pre-deplete your glycogen store before your body can have that like overcompensation effect and store more glycogen for a race within the next like 6 to 12 hours. But if you're going mental on Ben and Jerry's and whatever else for 6 weeks leading up to an event and then dial it in and start putting this stuff into practice with a week to go, like you missed 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Like you were too late for the bandwagon. You'd be better off putting this stuff into place forever and changing nothing for race day than ignoring all this stuff and trying to tweak your carbs and your veggie intake in the 5 to 3 to 1 day before an event. Like the longer term is more important.
yeah.
And then you're probably just playing with carbohydrate replenishment on competition day, particularly CrossFit events, because they make you do like 4 or 5 workouts that last between 3 and 20 minutes, which is a really like weird thing to have to try and fuel for. But longer term is definitely the most important part here. Like the closer you get, the less time you can do something with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I throw a question, Matt? In terms of that post-workout protein synthesis window, is my goal to go mad on protein, or I want to try and balance that out? And what's the benefit of going one versus the other?
What do you mean by balance it out?
So, do I want to finish my workout here, run home, and basically just smash a chicken? Or am I better off trying to get a meal in? Like, what's the better strategy here? If hitting the chicken, I can get like 60 grams of protein in, whereas if I go for a meal, I'm only going to get 25 grams of protein, and I'm also going to get carbs, protein, and fats. What's the strategy?
You're better off getting in that kind of balance. There's a limit to how much protein you can get in one sitting, and 60 grams is not necessary. After a workout, you might not want to go and have something to eat, which is where, if it's important to you, that kind of protein powder can come in. But you're better off, because you want to replenish your carbs as well. You want to replenish those stores. So getting in something a little bit more balanced is probably going to be more beneficial in the long run than just going and banging out 60 grams of chicken.
Sorry. How long should you leave it until once you've done a workout like this morning before you then have to make sure you've eaten something? Because I've still not eaten and it's been a couple of hours. Like, is there a window that you should be aiming for part of good habits after a workout to eat?
Well, it says in that kind of 2-hour period after, you want to be kind of that's the kind of the best place to maximise. If you can do it, if you've got that meal there straight after, then great. It starts to, I think the window does diminish the longer you leave it, but it's not as important as getting in that range across the day. That's the main focus. I think that's the main focus you should be thinking about.
Within 2 hours of a workout to like try.
Roughly.
Okay.
Roughly.
But if you're missing your protein spread across the day, or
It's not gonna
that
be,
nutrient
yeah.
balance, that 2-hour window is
It's
like playing with
nothing.
5% and you've got 95% of stuff to tweak on the table. Like, am I right thinking timing is a massive secondary factor to
Yeah, 100%.
like nutrient balance across the day?
It's something you should think about once you have dialed in that nutrition and that nutrition across the day, then you can start thinking about it. But if you don't already have that, it's not something you should be focusing on. Anything else? Cool, so supplements, food first approach always. Don't try and out supplement a bad diet. Your diet's not great, it's not like eating loads of protein powder or whatever is not going to help you, okay? Food first, always. If then we're still struggling to get enough protein, then we can think about protein powders. I know a lot of people use them. I use them sometimes in breakfast because they're tasty, and you know, so it's fine to use them. Your whey protein is like your gold standard protein. It's got the highest leucine content. It's the most easily digested out of all the proteins as well. There are different types of whey protein, but I'm not going to go into it. There are plant proteins, they're just that lower in leucine and less bioavailable, but you can get ones that are good, like your soy protein is really good if you are vegan vegetarian. Creatine, quickly just touch on, you take creatine, don't you?
Not all I do take. Nah, coffee.
Creatine and coffee. You take creatine. So creatine regenerates intracellular ATP or energy via the phosphocreatine system. Okay, so you can work harder for longer with creatine. It is in animal products like beef, poultry, and things like that already. And there is a lot of research on creatine that it is actually is good. It's safe to use. So it's effective in increasing your muscular stores and enhancing muscle mass in conjunction with that resistance training. So obviously, if you're not doing that resistance training, there's no point taking it. Okay, we want it for work. What's your experiences with it?
It makes, like, I have no problems with it. I feel I'm definitely being stronger since taking it. So I started taking it, what, 12 months ago? I'm going to talk to you, also. 12 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. I'm definitely stronger since taking it. Like, I'm probably training less now than I was pre-pandemic, but all the numbers are going up. No, I can't say like I'm a one person study, that's really bad, but like it's definitely criticism. Like,
it's not a magic pill.
It doesn't give me dramas, it's not very expensive, and it's the best research, so feels like a pretty easy win for me.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, with that though, that would be like if you've already got everything else optimised.
Exactly.
Like an extra.
Exactly. Yeah. Supplements is like the top of the pyramid. Got to nail everything else before start thinking about that. It's just good for optimising once you have those baselines nailed down.
And you continue to take creatine these days?
You can, yeah.
Even through less.
Yeah, you can.
Grams.
3 to 5 grams.
And it doesn't damage your kidneys. I remember reading something.
Only if you have like things like protein, too much protein, if you have kidney problems already, but it's other than that, it's fine.
I've noticed a difference on the
I actually don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it does. I think you can take it.
Because like a lot of the packets and stuff, they're job to sell the product. If they can get you to take it 5 grams a week by getting the cycle on,
yeah, just one thing. I don't know if it's how many different types, but it's just creatine. Just sure. Just don't feel tablets.
I did four of those a day because I have an excuse to. Because in the morning I like to drink like hydration.
That's a really good tip actually. If you struggle with hydration, first thing in the morning, you've slept for however long, you haven't drunk water in all that time, to have like a big glass of water when you wake up is a really good way of getting in that first bit of hydration.
Because I think that it's like a warm up to a meal as well.
Warm up to gets everything going, yeah? Yeah. Meal warm up. Water is a good meal warm up. If you eat in the morning, obviously, not everyone does. I'm just going to quickly touch on peri and menopause, just really quickly. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. Just that if you are, obviously this is for women and those that go through menopause, if you are experiencing symptoms and stuff, hydration is really important. Hot flushes, so there's research on eating things like phytoestrogens that you find in soy could alleviate some of the symptoms because they have weak estrogenic effects, and actually soy is safe. I know some people thought it can cause cancer, but actually it's fine. It's more than safe for you to consume daily. Minimising alcohol, caffeine, things like that, and omega-3 for that cognitive decline, things like that is really important for our brain function. So yeah, just to summarise, macronutrients play an important role in our bodies, we all know that. Understanding TDEE is important in general and for if you're planning weight loss and for weight gain. Behaviour change is important for long-term success. Malnutrition can arise in a variety of situations, not just your extremes. If you're not eating good quality, you can have those nutritional deficiencies. Getting enough protein over the course of the day is more important than those specific timings. So getting just that equal distribution and a food first approach always to everything. Then we can start thinking about other things. Questions, and thank you so much for coming and listening.
Before you dive into questions, I'm going to jump in. One, thanks. That was great. The 45 minutes I would do. If you're left with this, because like Tiah's referenced loads of you want to be eating this much and this much of this thing, and here's how you might work it out, and you're all sat there like, yeah, what? But for me, how do I do that? Like this is useful, but I need to work it out for me, and I'm just one person. Or okay, I understand I need to eat this much of this thing, but now how do I go and do that? Like, where do I find that thing? I want to get this much protein, and like, give me some strategies, because I just can't find it. I need a way to get that to happen. We're going to create some opportunities for you guys and everyone else who's not here to sit down with Tiah if you want, have some one-on-one time and start to like work some stuff out, build some strategies if you want to do so, and then to recheck back in if you want to like make that a longer term kind of driver and the things you're looking to chase. Because I know it's really hard coming away from here's some information at a population level, and now I want to apply it to myself. That can be a real challenge. So we're going to create these opportunities. So keep an eye on the video coming out this week, and we'll like point you in the right direction and let you know how you can get in touch to book some time to go and chat to Tiah.
Yep, you have to remember that a lot of these things I've given you, they're very general, and we are very individual. We all require different things, we're all different shapes, sizes, we all work differently, so it is specific, and there's more than one way of doing things, and it's just finding that way that's best for us, fits into our lives, something that is sustainable. That's the goal. That's what's important to me, is being able to help you guys long term and maintaining these things, not just going on and off, yo-yoing constantly, because it's just draining. It is draining. So you want something that you'll be able to implement for the rest of your life, basically.